We are going to start. We're going to start here in a second. If all trustees could find their seat, please. All right. Good morning, everyone. Yes. Jenny, please go ahead and get coffee. Same with you, David. Yes. Well, welcome, everyone, to our board meeting for the University of Oregon's Board of Trustees, December 10th. And we're going to do roll call first.
Trustee Aaron, Abbott,
Present.
Boyle, Evans Jackman. I saw her on Zoom. Yeah, she's there. Holwerda,
Here.
Horniker, James,
Here.
Lopez Duboff,
Here.
Mitrochin Morgan, Moses,
Here.
Sandoval, Seeley,
Here.
Stormont,
Here.
Tykeson,
Here.
Olam, Warden.
Here.
Quorum's
All right,
present.
we have a quorum. So we're going to change our agenda a little bit just to let everybody know. We have a couple trustees that need to leave early to catch flights. So what we're going to do this morning is we will start as normal. We'll have comment from a number of organizations. We're also going to have public comment. And then after that public comment, we are going to do our resolutions and we're going to vote. So we have, and hopefully we have time. It depends on how many we have in public comment. And then following that, we will do the standing reports from the provost and the president and so on. So that is our plan. And we're going to start with the Officers of Administration Council. Nedzer, would you please come on up? And good morning. You're fine. We've set aside 10 minutes for you, Nedzer. If that's, hope that works. And I will give you a time check if we start to run out of time, all right?
Thank you. I will need that.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair, Trustees, and President Schultz. For the record, my name is Nedzer Erelis. I serve our University of Oregon as the Director of University Housing for Residence Life and Educational Initiatives, a position of immense fulfillment I've held since May of 2023. Today, I am here representing the Officers of Administration Council, the OAC, as the newly elected co-campus partner liaison. I share this position and its duties alongside Mel Chambon, who could not be here this morning. To ground us, I want to briefly define who we are. The OAC represents approximately 1,700 officers of administration. We are the advisors, the coordinators, the managers, the analysts, the directors who serve as the connective tissue of this institution. We are not a union. We are not a union. We are an elected governance body that operates on a partnership model. Our mandate is to amplify the voices of OAs, identify themes in our workplace, and reflect those realities back to administration to ensure the university's mission thrives. We recently concluded our fall listening session on October 30th. I want to publicly thank President Schultz for not just participating in that session, but for being present. His willingness to engage directly with the council and our constituents is a vital part of the shared governance we value. More importantly, his empathy and passion for our university is palpable. However you came to be here, President Schultz, and why ever you chose to be here, your presence is the catalyst of a narrative arc that this university will remember. We see you. During that October session, we also honored our 2025 OA Stars. These 7 individuals represent the diverse impact of OAs, from Rick Tabor in utilities, keeping the lights on, to Becky Crabtree in global engagement, supporting our international students. While we celebrate these stars, the council is currently in the process of reviewing this recognition program to ensure it continues to meaningfully capture the evolving contributions of our workforce. Looking ahead, the council is focused on 2 primary goals for the 2025-2026 academic year. Goal 1 is compensation and career paths. We are actively advocating for a more equitable merit process. Specifically, the council is advising a preference for a model that pairs cost of living adjustments, COLA, and across-the-board increases alongside merit pay. Beyond the numbers, we are focused on retention. We are working to enable OAs to better articulate their value and tell their story, ensuring that talent is recognized and can grow within our University of Oregon rather than leaving it. Goal 2 is professional development and flourishing. This goal centers on the whole employee. While we continue to build mentoring resources, a critical urgent theme has emerged regarding caregivers. We are identifying the significant gaps in childcare services and family support infrastructure. We are seeing a silent exit. Talented professionals, often in the sandwich generation, caring for both children and aging parents, who are stretched to the breaking point. To truly flourish, our OAs require more than just professional development. They require the structural support to manage their lives. We cannot fully support our students if we are unsupported in caring for our own families. And we present this to you not with umbrage, but with a profound acknowledgement of the burden of this challenge. I'd like to pivot now from policy to people. In my current role, I am afforded privileged access to profoundly transformative opportunities to connect and collaborate with our colleagues. And these are hard times. With our budget crisis headlining this year's challenges, these are very consequential times. I often hear the word flourishing. I convey the word flourishing in my role and with my teams. To some, it feels obscure. To others, atonal. But to me, it is necessary. If there was ever a time for flourishing, it is now. It must be now. And I say this not idealistically, not as some person drunk off the Kool-Aid, but as someone who sees people, as someone who holds people, students and employees alike. And it's the people here and now in this arc of Oregon's history that make flourishing possible. I need you to hear this. It must be now. Because it is the Schultzes, the Longs, the Kindles, the Canavals, the Simpsons, the Alexanders, the Griffles, the Hatfields, the Garners, the Meads, the Blanchards, the Asensos, the Terhune Sermons, and the Schmidt-McKenzies, the Schoonovers, the Dawsons, the Espanolas, the Sons, the Sousa Ransfords, the Moseses, the Marrows. These are hard-hat, sledgehammer-wielding builders, consequential builders for a time of consequential building. I've been connected to the university since 2012, so my horizon is much narrower than those who have known this place 20, 30, 40, or even 50 years. But I will tell you boldly, if not a little ignorantly, that there's never been a time like now, ever. A time to move at the speed of trust. Not like this, with these people in this impossible institutional moment. If our Oregon cannot rise over the next 10 years, if our Oregon does not flourish, then I am convinced it never will. This is the singularity. There will never again be a moment like this, a moment where a president's vision meets the builder's purpose. So I say I am with you, and inasmuch as I know there are dozens, if not hundreds of others who are also with you, I can say we are with you. We are OAs. We take responsibility for what needs to be done, and we look forward to building a stronger University of Oregon together. Thank you.
Thanks, Nedzer. Hold on just a second. Does anybody have any questions? You did a great job on your 10. You left 2 for questions, which is always helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was not intentional.
Okay. Well, it was still well done. Thank you for being here this morning.
Pleasure.
Yep.
Yep.
We're going to hear from the campus labor organizations and a little bit of a change they've requested. And this is a wonderful request for everybody to come up together. And if that goes well, we'd love to do it in the future. But so I think so we've got the United Academics, Graduate Teaching Fellows Federation, the U of O Student Workers, and the SEIU have all requested to come together. And if you've changed your mind, that's fine, but we'd love to have you come together. So we have about 35 minutes, and the floor is yours. And good morning. Thanks for being here. Oh, I would ask one favor. Please introduce yourself. Yeah, normally we would be doing that from here.
Hello. Okay. Hi. My name is August Harrell. I am a PhD candidate and graduate employee in the Earth Sciences Department, and I am currently serving as Vice President of Member Communications for the Graduate Teaching Fellows Federation. Myself and my coworker, Jacob Schmidt, will be delivering the GTFF's official statement to the Board of Trustees today. We would also like to thank the board for overseeing capital projects like the renovation of Lawrence Hall. Our membership benefits greatly from your commitment to disability access and workplace safety. First, we would like to acknowledge the difficult work that this board does in its responsibility to the university's financial well-being. As GTFF's contract bargaining is set to start this coming term, our member organizers report that in nearly all their check-ins with fellow graduate employees, concerns were expressed over the university's financial well-being and the future of their programs and employment. President Trump's H.R. 1 bill has created a serious state budget deficit amounting to $15 billion over the next 6 years. In response to this deficit, Oregon lawmakers debated a 5% cut to both K-12 and higher education budgets, while the Higher Education Coordinating Commission warned them of the grave effects these cuts would have on the quality of education in Oregon. Over the summer, word circulated of a budget crisis at our university, one that could require large cuts, which were not only potentially life-altering for our membership, but concerning for the university's future health. Our campus labor organizations brought to this board the voices of our membership, the graduate employees, faculty, staff, and student workers of this university. These voices were essential to the decision-making process of the administration and the board moving forward towards the finalized budget. The experience of last summer highlights not only our shared care for the university's health, but also the necessity of consultation with campus labor leadership throughout the budgetary process. Our unions represent voices that this board needs to hear to make informed and sound decisions. As our university is sure to face future challenges, it is essential that the Campus Labor Council be included in Board of Trustees meetings as an active voice and not merely as after-the-fact commenters.
Thank you, August. Hi, as August said earlier, my name is Jacob Schmidt. I'm the Vice President for External Relations for the GTFF, as well as a PhD candidate and graduate instructor in the History Department here. And I'll be continuing the statement where August left off. So despite the dire prognostications about state budgets, we want to warn against the writing off the state as a source of funding for this university and leaning instead on tuition donors and cuts to fill in those budget gaps. The GTFF would like this board to know that we are committed to working with every member of the campus community to ensure the quality, prestige, and financial security of the University of Oregon are preserved and expanded into the future. And to that end, our members will be traveling to Salem this upcoming session to advocate for the University of Oregon. And we hope that our efforts meeting with Oregon lawmakers this February can be conducted in collaboration with the university so that we can secure the public funding that we all know our university needs. We believe that if labor and university leaders work together, we can weather budget deficits and continue to provide quality education, conduct innovative research, and improve working conditions for students, faculty, and staff here at the U of O. And if you'll forgive me for being a historian and academic for a moment, I want to quote from the great economic historian Kim Phillips Fine, who writes that austerity is, quote, always a political choice. Questions about what kind of society we want to have, about who will pay for certain kinds of social provisions, and whether we will have them at all, are inescapably political questions, not accounting ones. But there are also accounting issues, right, when we make these kinds of decisions. And the decision to over-rely on tuition to fund a public university does have an accounting issue. Increasing undergraduate enrollment and retention, which are great and wonderful, and we've been doing a great job with this, while reducing the number of fully funded graduate positions, has a tendency to reduce the quality of education for undergrads and degrade the working conditions of those graduate employees. Because in departments such as my own, which offer significant general ed requirements, there's often a large number of incoming students, first-year students that we serve, that we do not have enough GE lines to cover the grading required for those courses. This tension, highlights this sort of thing. It's just one department, but that's the sort of tensions that exist in providing public education, and one that requires us to remember that it is a public good that we are offering and not a consumer product. And in President Schultz's end-of-term message to students, we noted that we're living and working through a time of political disruption and great public skepticism of higher education. We feel this acutely here at GTFF and all across campus labor. On campus and around the country, we've seen budget cuts, public protests suppressed, funding revoked, student visas canceled, faculty and staff fired for political activity outside of their work, or merely teaching courses that question certain orthodoxies. And then as my union siblings noted, I didn't know I'd go first. On October 12th, President Trump announced that he was extending the so-called Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education, which had been issued to a handful of elite institutions, to all colleges and universities. This compact promises a return of canceled research funding and priority in future funding on the condition that schools adopt the ideology and policy initiatives of the current administration. We at GTFF would like to call particular attention to the provisions of that compact that ask universities to limit the admission of international students, some of our core members, to close down programs that teach about gender and sexuality, and to monitor the political activity of students and instructors. We see these as a clear threat to our members and to the life and mission of public institutions like the University of Oregon. Of course, our administration here on campus has not accepted these terms. However, in the last month, Portland State University, Eastern Oregon University, the University of Portland, Reed College, Willamette University, and Pacific University have all made public statements rejecting the extortionate tactics of the Trump administration. Alongside my fellow campus workers here today, I would like to ask the University of Oregon administration to join those 6 other universities in our state and dozens around the country in openly and publicly rejecting and condemning this attempt by our current federal government to make grant funding contingent on ideological rigidity. The freedom to teach and to learn are essential to the maintenance of our democratic society, and they must be defended against those who would prefer our students live in ignorance and instructors live in fear. And I'll toss to our colleagues here. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Chris Case. I'm in SEIU. I work for Pathway Oregon here on campus. I am a statewide director for higher ed for SEIU. I'm also a steward here on campus, as well as a member of the CAPE Council, which is our PAC through SEIU to decide who we're going to endorse for politics. I am joining my fellow leaders of labor here to basically call on the Board of Trustees and the wider Office of Admission to kind of join us in collaboration. When SEIU is up in Salem and we are talking to our elected officials about how the budget needs to be spent and how much money we need to prioritize for higher education, we would like it to not just be up there, like us as a union up there with the fight. We would like there to actually be some buy-in from the places that we work and the places that we actually, help to make run, right? Consistently, data shows when people are polled as to why they come to this university, it's things like the great campus, the great research, how clean everything is here, how great everything is in here. The folks you see before you and the thousands of employees that we represent are why that happens. And, we appreciate that. We appreciate the attaboys we get from this board and from, the university at times, but we would like that to be a closer collaboration. We feel like we're leaving a lot on the table by not going up there as a combined block, that we all have interests and things that we would like to see happen, that we could see happen if we work together. I would like to echo the call as well to not sign on to any compact from this administration that would limit the academic freedoms of this institution or to call into question the values that this university says that it adheres to and holds up. Look, I'm not a teacher. I don't have the pressures that some of these folks have, being pressured about what they have to teach and how they have to teach it. But if we want to say with our whole chest that we stand by these ideals, we cannot kowtow to an administration that is not going to take our acquiescence as just done and dusted, right? We've seen historical examples to probably interpersonal examples in your own life. When you give in to a bully, they don't just go away. They often ask for more. And I think it's beholden on us to lock arms together and to stand against that, labor and administrators and the folks in charge, and to actually show that we are stronger together if we can stand together. And we can actually, work together in a spirit of collegiate, collaboration to actually get what we would like. So in closing, I would like to echo the university should sign its own compact standing against what the Trump administration is calling for. As a member of the Service Employees Union, we would like to work closer with our Office of Administration, with the Board of Trustees, to actually getting what our workers and importantly our community actually deserves. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jeff Schroeder. I'm an associate professor in the Religious Studies Department here at UO, and I'm a proud member of United Academics of University of Oregon. I am here to report to the board about the new Oregon Compact for Higher Education. So the impetus for the creation of this compact was the Trump administration's so-called Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education. So I'm going to echo the comments of my fellow campus labor leaders in reiterating that this compact was an extortionist attempt to intimidate colleges and universities in exchange for access to federal funding to agree to a series of rules. These rules would have been really problematic. They would entail establishing binary gender policies, ending DEI initiatives, suppressing campus activism, limiting university employees' speech, and abolishing academic programs that are deemed to belittle conservative ideas. And as Jacob mentioned, this invitation was then extended to all colleges and universities across the country. It's wonderful that the overwhelming response of college and universities has been to reject that compact. Here at the University of Oregon, our Senate issued a resolution condemning the compact. As Jacob mentioned, and I'm going to list them again, across the state, the presidents and spokesmen of a number of universities and colleges publicly rejected the compact. So that was Portland State, Eastern Oregon, Willamette, Pacific University, University of Portland, and Reed College. We are disappointed that our president has not done the same, but there's still time for him to do so. Although this issue may appear to be behind us, according to a November 24th New York Times report, the White House has vowed to regroup, potentially by revising and reissuing their compact. In any case, all of this has motivated us to take the proactive step of creating our own Oregon Compact for Higher Education. This is meant to be an agreement between higher education unions, student groups, senates, and potentially college and university administrations, elected officials, and community allies regarding our shared principles and goals for higher education in the state. It expresses our shared commitment to maintain our colleges and universities' independence and protection of free speech in the face of federal threats, and to push for much-needed reforms, which I'll detail in a moment. This compact was drafted by a group of University of Oregon faculty and has now been signed onto by all 4 campus labor unions here at the University of Oregon. A lightly revised version of the same compact is now being adopted and promoted at the state level by leadership from AAUP, AFT, the Oregon Educators Association, and other higher ed unions. So a whole statewide coalition is uniting around this document and these commitments. So let me now say a few words about the content of this compact. The compact declares that the mission of higher education in the United States to create, preserve, and disseminate knowledge and educate students for the benefit of the common good has been undermined. It's been undermined by the withdrawal of public funding. It's been undermined by the rise of a market-oriented logic in higher ed administration. And here I really want to emphasize that the University of Oregon is not a profit-driven corporation, and it must not be run like one. The mission of higher education has been undermined by escalating tuition costs and crippling debt for students, by brutal attacks on international students and faculty, and on student and faculty activists. And it has been undermined by censorship of those who research and teach on race, sex, gender, history, and other targeted topics. In response, our compact asserts 3 main agendas. First, it calls for absolute protection of academic freedom and independence. This means absolutely refusing to sign on to or agree to the Trump Compact or anything like it. It also means protecting students and faculty's right to freely engage in all manner of civic education and debate on and off campus. Second, the compact calls for real democracy and shared governance at our universities, which means an end to top-down management practices, the establishment of democratic systems of checks and balances, where students, faculty, and staff have a substantial role in shaping policies, curricula, and budgetary decisions. This past summer was a glaring example of how shared governance is not yet a reality at our university. And third, the compact calls for fairness and economic justice, which means a shift away from part-time precarious employment, a closing of the extreme gap between upper administrator salaries and pay for faculty, staff, and student workers, full financial transparency in regard to universities' budget and asset allocations, and finally, free tuition for all students. Free tuition is not a pipe dream. It is already a reality in about 24 countries in the world. For the sake of fairness and economic justice, we should all be working to make it a reality here in the United States and in Oregon. So as members of UO's Board of Trustees, I ask you to take home with you today a copy of this compact. I have handouts. Please read this short document, reflect upon it, discuss it at board meetings and on your own. And then if you agree with its principles and goals, please sign it, either individually or collectively as a board. If you do not agree with its goals and principles, please tell us why. I ask you to have a conversation because we would like to understand how our vision for the future of this university and higher ed in the state differs from yours if it does. Higher education faces all kinds of challenges right now. We all know there are funding challenges, there are political challenges, there are public relations challenges. It would behoove all of us to come together around shared principles and goals and to work together, which I think is the spirit of the comments of my colleagues here at this table. This right here is an expression of the shared principles and goals of University of Oregon faculty, staff, and students. I urge you, our trustees, and our administrators to join us in committing to these goals and principles and working to make this vision a reality. So I was planning to end my comments there, but UA President Kate Mills, I was gonna share my time with her, and she's not present due to illness. So I'm not sure all the things she was gonna say, but I do have a couple points that I want to relay on her behalf and on the behalf of United Academics. So this is just two very concrete issues and demands that our United Academics Union would like to make of our Board of Trustees and our administrators. Number one, UO should refuse to renew the Bigfoot Beverages contract that is coming up. Bigfoot is anti-worker and has treated striking union workers very badly for over a year. On this day, December 10th, the Bigfoot workers have been on strike for 468 days. This action is to protect their pensions, which is something they have had since May 1st, 1957. So please support us, support those workers, and cancel that contract. The second issue and demand, the University of Oregon should disallow the use of UO's branding by KUGN 590, which calls itself Radio Home of the Oregon Ducks. That should happen until there is more oversight and accountability for their repeated attacks on University of Oregon workers, students, and administrators, attacks on higher education as a whole, and highly political content. Again, this radio station calls itself the home of the Oregon Ducks, but here are some of the comments that have recently been made on broadcasting. Rich Valdez on March 20th, 2025, regarding ICE abducting a graduate student over political beliefs, commented, quote, "Those students are the enemies of the United States. They are agents for terrorist organizations, and every single one needs to be deported," end quote. Ben Shapiro on KUGN radio in May said, "It's time to defund the universities." In April 2025, Mark Levin on the radio station said, "These colleges are tax exempt and they hate us. The higher education experiment has failed. They're not pro-American. One of my proposals was to defund the colleges and universities." I won't go on. There's many statements like this. It's not good. To the extent that's legally possible, we should disallow their use of the UO brand, or at least make some kind of statement or concerted effort to distance the University of Oregon from this toxic anti-education discourse that's being put forward in the name of Oregon Ducks. That's all I have for you, but I would like to pass out these copies of this compact for your approval. Thank you.
Jennifer, thanks, Jeff. Jennifer, can you grab those? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, well, Jeff is doing that. I was going to point out that I'm not, in fact, UA President Kate Sellis-Mills, which perhaps was obvious. No, I'm Mike Urbancic, a teaching professor in economics and president of the state conference of the American Association of University Professors, so AUP Oregon president currently. And like Jacob, I serve as the vice president for external relations, but for UA instead of GTFF. When I found out minutes ago that Kate wouldn't be able to join us for illness this morning, I leapt at the opportunity to sit with and stand together in solidarity with the workers on campus in the Campus Labor Council. We have learned over shared struggles over the last few years that we are stronger together as the Campus Labor Council when we act in unison and collaboration and cooperation. We would like, as mentioned by Jacob and by Chris, to stand together with you as we go to Salem. We have a shared vision, shared values that we can approach and attack together in hopefully more harmony and more resonance as the messages that we take to our legislators, to our representatives are in concert rather than in recent sessions when we've been working at odds with one another. I know that we, in fact, we here in this room, we groups and people, individuals, are stronger when we are together. That's true also for what Jeff is saying about the Oregon Compact, that not only do we have an opportunity to work together and collaborate on funding and resources across employee groups and across the administration as we look to the state and elsewhere for support for our institution that we all care for and love and want to see succeed. We also have an opportunity to stand together as we reach out and collaborate with other institutions across the state and across the country and beyond to stand in defense of higher education. The Oregon Compact is a place to start. We have, our colleagues here have laid out a vision. As Jeff said, we invite input on that vision that we can take and build what we'd like to see rather than simply react to what we don't want to see happen to our campus or campuses across the country. We are here together, unified in purpose and vision, we hope, to strengthen the core missions of this institution. As long as I am here together with you at the University of Oregon throughout the next 6 months or beyond, I commit to doing what I can to help students, to help faculty and staff and colleagues. I look forward to that same level of commitment from each of you for the next 6 months and beyond. If there were the courage to put in the same amount of time and commitment and passion into this institution from members of the board or the organizations seated here, represented, or those in the gallery, or those beyond, tuning in online, that I have tried to put in over the last 13 years, what an amazingly successful campus we would have. I'm thrilled at the prospect. And again, I end as I began. We know at this table here that we are stronger together. And once we have that vision across the rest of the table, we will be. Thank you.
All right. Any questions? No, I have a couple comments. Thanks, one, for all. I mean, everybody puts in a lot of time and thought. All of you do, and despite what it might look like at times with us, everybody here does as well. I want to mention a couple things that or share a couple ideas. One, August and Jacob, you talked about, and this is true, I think, with all organized labor unions with us, is the effort to work together and to listen. And I think the administration does a wonderful job of that. But we also want to mention that the bylaws for this for the trustees intentionally has 2 students, has a graduate student, faculty, administrative faculty. And that was done for good reason, to get perspective. And it's commented regularly by trustees how much we appreciate when we hear from David or Talik or Sai or whoever, giving us a different perspective. And so I wanted to mention that. Second thing, there was lots of talks about, a lot of discussion about the state funding that we get and the concern about it being here. And obviously we're concerned about that. Federal funding that's going on. There was also comments made about how we're very tuition dependent and how it'd be nice if we weren't. The irony is, the one thing we really do control is tuition, enrollment. I mean, that's the one thing that we spend a lot of time on it, because we have full-time lobbyists at the state and federal, city, to try to make sure we get federal funding and state funding, but it's something that we're lobbying for, we're asking for. Whereas enrollment is something we decide based on the quality of our offering, the pricing that we do, and the access to it. So it's an interesting conundrum. Is the thing that we're the most reliant on and we worry about, but it's also the thing that we actually have, we don't have to ask anybody for that, and like we do for the state or the feds. Chris, you mentioned about coordinated lobbying, and thank you for that. And I watched Carl on the side of my periphery vision making notes. We are lobbying all the time. I mean, all the time. And your point is a good point. So just want you to know it didn't fall on deaf ears. I'm not going to speak about what happens from here. We as the trustees intentionally are not trying to run this university. We hire, we oversee. But as I noted, Carl was making notes about that. And of course, there are trustees here that personally have make lots of efforts lobbying on behalf of higher ed. And then the last comment I'm going to make, I think, Jeff, you shared this. We never want to be a profit-driven organization, and we're not. We wish we had a little profit right now, actually. But we're not. We're a nonprofit, but we are revenue-driven. And so that's really I think the challenge that's been discussed over the last, year is as that revenue gets tougher to find. And while it, as the quote was shared about the economist who said, that's policy, not accounting, basically, or policy, not financial. It's true, it is policy, because policy decides how resources that are allocated. But once they're allocated, it becomes financial. And so we are revenue driven. We spend a lot of time talking about how do we increase the revenue, how do we sustain the revenue, and ultimately it's about providing a wonderful product, a wonderful institution, wonderful education. And we appreciate all the comments that you make. We listen to them, even when you feel like we don't, we do. And we thank you for your time. So.
Steve.
Oh, Jordan.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So one of the key things I really appreciate about the University of Oregon is this concept I call kind of a egalitarian milieu, okay? And I think that goes back, decades and so forth. So I think you presenting as a labor council really together sends a real powerful message, and I really appreciate you doing that. And I had a question for Dr. Schroeder. Thank you for presenting the Oregon Compact on Higher Education. So there's a lot of principles here. And I was wondering if, not to put you on the spot right away, or you could think about this, but if you had to pick, say, 2 action items that the university could work to operationalize, what would those 2 action items be?
Thank you so much for your question, Gerard. I mean, a very first step is to speak out in favor of this compact and opposed to the Trump compact. That's an easy first step. But in terms of, I would refer anyone interested in specific action items to the financial transparency resolution. There's a lot of detailed, specific asks that are made on UAUO's website, strengthenuo.org, that lays out what kind of financial transparency we're talking about. So that could be one very first step. We hear a lot about financial transparency, but there's much more specific and detailed information that would be beneficial to have. Beyond that, I mean, there's a number of more specific action items that I didn't include in my speech. The categorization of all student workers as employees by default is something that could be actionable right away. The issue of administrator salaries and creating some equity around pay, that's something that could happen right away. And then the issue of shared governance is very much a live issue on campus right now. So we have, for example, calls from the deans for faculty advisory committees on issues of budget. And we were glad to see that, but we were not so glad to see the way those committees were formed. For example, in the College of Arts and Sciences, there was an invitation for people to volunteer to serve on those committees and provide advice to the deans, but it wasn't a democratic process. It was a hand-picking of members for those committees. And so we're still seeing deans and above making decisions in undemocratic ways and not allowing the Senate or the unions to have a role in selecting the members and in choosing the policies. So right now we have a resolution going through the Senate and a policy that's going to come out regarding shared governance as it relates to program closures. And so that's a really important issue. That's a place where right now our administrators can show that they're committed to shared governance by making sure that that policy is as democratic as possible, as transparent as possible, and agreeing and approving of the policy that the Senate puts forward. So that'll be a place where we're going to be looking for an opportunity for a very concrete step towards shared governance. This past summer, the way proposed program closures were dealt with was extremely undemocratic, and we're trying to revise that. So that's a place where we'd like to see improvements.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time here today. Thank you very much. All right, next we're going to move to public comment section. And we have 8 who have signed up, and we'll allocate 3 minutes for each of you. And we will, Cody will give a notice when you have a minute left. 2 are on Zoom, and I'll call your name, and I'll say who is next up as well, so you can be prepared. And first up is Robin Bailey, and then Miranda Carr. Robin? Okay, we're gonna move on beyond Robin and Miranda Carr, and then David Eigel. Good morning, Miranda. Oh, will you press? There's the button on the right with the little icon of the man or woman.
I found it.
Yep.
Yes,
Thanks.
there it is. Thank you. So I'm going to try and squeeze this into 3 minutes, guys, but it's challenging at best, I shall say. So My name is Miranda. I work here at the College of Arts and Sciences for ASU2. I was part of the group that was established and created to start. It's when we started, pardon me. It's when we created the ASUs and created this support system for our faculty and students. So thank you for your time today. Here we go. And for giving me this time to speak. I'm here as a person who's deeply passionate about the university, about the goals, about my job, and about the students that we represent. I've worked here for 2 years, and while I've worked here, I've been finishing my undergraduate degree as a non-traditional student. And because I care, I have to be honest with what I've witnessed. First, I think it's important to note that we are at a point in history where ethical leadership is under a global spotlight. Everywhere people are being forced to evaluate who represents them, what values they stand for, and whether the people in power can uphold the level of integrity it takes to embody ethical leadership. This moment is no different, and the decisions you make moving forward will show exactly where that integrity stands. I represent non-traditional students and staff. My success here has relied deeply on my coworkers who are dedicated, patient, and extraordinary at their jobs. And if I didn't have them as a resource, as a non-traditional student, I don't think I would even be a quarter as successful as I am today. Non-traditional students here lack a very deep understanding of support. The support that they need. There's no tailored orientation. There's no dedicated contact person or clear resources. Initiatives like luncheons are appreciated, but for students like me that are balancing a 40-hour work week, three classes, 12 credits total, 2 kids, 3 cats, a dog, and 6 chickens, I don't have time for a luncheon, guys. It's appreciated, but it's not something that I can do.
1 minute.
I work at the front desk. I've guided students through Canvas and other systems because there was no one else to help. Many of us navigate these challenges alone. Imagine what we could achieve if the university met us where we are and intentionally invested in supporting us. If there was a dedicated office, accessible resources, and staff who understood the reality of our lives. I also need to stand here as a staff member. Last May, I stood with my colleagues when layoffs were announced. We lost sleep, we waited for clarity. Instead, we were spoken at and not listened to in a town hall. Questions were filtered and returned as vague circular answers. The only direct response was the administration will not take pay cuts so that your pays could remain competitive. Even after that, we still showed up every day. We still came here every day for students and for our coworkers. And we still came here for that. And we still had to watch some of our most amazing coworkers go. Layoffs came quietly through emails, just days after commencement. The heartbreak was real. I will forever mourn the loss of the career faculty that you let go.
Time.
Those career faculty were more than employees. They were mentors, guides, and champions for students. Their classes filled first. Students line up at their doors for office hours. Losing them is not just a number, it's a profound loss that isn't academic, operational, and deeply human, and the students are the ones that pay for it. Can I finish?
Well, so we know it's not your intent, Miranda, but it ends up taking time from other people.
But the other person didn't come before. Pardon me if I'm being...
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you 30 seconds.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Let's see. Since then, my experience as staff is our unit has been adjusting to new procedures meant to create uniformity across ASUs. I believe the intention may have been to streamline processes, but in practice, these changes have added time, confusion, and extra steps that don't match the realities of our work. Even with record admissions of students, support is being taken away. The human connection that once defined our work is now being replaced with forms and rigid procedures. From our perspective, uniformity feels less like improvement and more like a pathway to reduce staff.
Thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, okay. See you, David. Yep.
Hello? Oh, we're on.
Good morning.
Good.
Yep, you're on. And then up next will be Jack Dodson on Zoom. Morning, David.
Good morning, everyone. A year ago, I pointed out that President Schultz had failed to produce his claimed incontrovertible evidence that Frederick Dunn had been the Eugene Exalted Cyclops in the 20s. A year later, he still failed to produce this evidence. It's hard to produce things that don't exist. The U of O authors had only 38 days to research and write their report on Dede and Dunn. The Knights of the Ku Klux Klan Fraternal Order is a topic that confuses even some who dedicate years of their lives to its study. Its promoters and salesmen lied to prospects, telling different stories about the nature of what they were selling. The fictional story of Dunn, the Klan leader, didn't appear in history until 1992, when 30 years after Dunn Hall was dedicated, when it was first fabricated by Eckhart Toy. His work makes clear that he did almost no work on Dunn, didn't know what he was talking about. There are only two pieces of evidence used to establish that Dunn was the Exalted Cyclops. First, the letter from Dean Sheldon. The report authors misrepresented Sheldon as confiding that Dunn was the Exalted Cyclops. In fact, Sheldon was describing what he called a wild, silly rumor that his friend Dunn was the local leader. Dunn's name was being misused by the salesman to help promote membership sales. Second, a typed list of Klan leaders in the Oregon Historical Research Library was presented as if it were an authenticated Klan document. It isn't, and it has no evidentiary value and should never have been used as evidence. Had Dunn been the Exalted Cyclops, it would have been well known in his lifetime, but it was unknown. At his death, U of O President Boyer and the Eugene community praised him to the skies. In 1962, U of O President Fleming asked that he be honored. It's time for the lies to stop. U of O students deserve better. Do the right thing. Make a public announcement that announce that mistakes were made. The U of O Dunn report's narrative doesn't reflect actual history, that Professor Dunn was an exceptional individual who gave a lifetime of love and service to not only the U of O, but the entire state of Oregon.
1 minute.
His honoring in 1962 was appropriate. It was very appropriate. He's one of the finest human beings this community ever produced, and it's a disgrace that I have come here for over 9 years, documented everything. No one challenges. I put up a $25,000 prize to any of the historians if they want to defend the report. No one does. Why has nothing been done? As John Belushi said in Animal House, why don't you do it? It won't cost you nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Jack Dodson and then Bonnie Mann. And Jack, are you queued up?
Yeah, can you all hear me?
We can hear you. We hope we get to see you in person next time.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't make it. Anyway, I'm Jack Dodson, an undergrad and member of the Climate Justice League, a student group on campus. Since we have some new board members here today, I wanted to give a brief history of what Climate Justice League's Fossil-Free UO campaign has been pushing for. For context, the campus heating system is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Eugene. Because UO's high emissions have an outsized impact on climate change, you have a responsibility to reduce these emissions. Students began calling for a heating system renovation to slash these emissions back in 2017. And in 2019, as part of Climate Action Plan 2, UO committed to cutting these emissions and began studying alternatives. This process was lengthy and delay-ridden, but it was completed in February of 2024. All of the options have been studied, and the UO's Thermal Transition Task Force made its recommendation for option 2B. Since then, the ASUO Senate unanimously passed a resolution calling for the rapid implementation of option 2B. Students have turned out to these comment sessions to voice their support for this action, and a letter calling for option 2B and additional climate action was sent to the board from 10 student groups on campus and 22 climate action organizations from across Oregon. Despite the calls for action from campus and beyond, and despite UO having completed all of the preliminary internal processes, Nothing more has happened. The Climate Justice League has been pushing for this for years, and we will be here until this is complete. We fully understand that there are complexities, notably financial, and we want to work with you to find solutions. So please, commit to implementing option 2B and then work with us to make it happen. Cutting these emissions is both a responsibility and an opportunity. So please take action now instead of kicking this can even further down the road. Additionally, I support the calls for terminating fossil fuel investments, which was promised in 2016 but never completed, and divesting from the military-industrial complex, and I support the demands of our campus labor unions. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Jack. Bonnie Mann, and then Declan Zupo. Morning, Bonnie.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me this time. I want to speak about the issue of shared governance because I see this as a major source of the tensions between this Board of Trustees, upper administration, and faculty at University of Oregon. Mr. Holverdi, you very often say what a great job is being done with sort of consulting and consensus. And I want to let you know when you say that, it creates this experience that I'm going to describe here of what planet are we living on and what planet are you living on. So I want to address these tensions between University of Oregon faculty and higher level administration and Board of Trustees, which didn't start with the crises of confidence that have unfolded over the last year, but which have exploded and threatened to become entrenched. I want to suggest that the issue at the heart of the mistrust has to do with what we call shared governance, and that at the current moment when it comes to the meaning of shared governance, the faculty often feels we live on planet one with the students and staff, and the upper administration and Board of Trustees live on planet two. In other words, we lack a shared understanding of what shared governance means or should mean. So here is a citation that maybe will help us a little bit figure out how we got here, because these problems are rooted in broad social, economic, and political dynamics that impact most public institutions on some level. And by that I mean, it's not your fault individually or personally that we're here. It's not our fault individually or personally, but we're dealing with larger systemic issues. So, the classic conception of shared governance was articulated in the Statement on Government of Colleges and Universities in 1966. That was jointly formulated by the Association of Governing Boards of American Colleges and Universities, the American Council on Education, and the AAUP. That's an important document historically.
1 minute.
Over the last decade, the shared understanding of what shared governance means has eroded to the extent that governments have divested from public universities. In an article written by a former university president, he states, "Two dynamics in contemporary higher education disrupt the relations among boards of trustees, presidents, and campus faculty, and threaten the traditions of shared governance. The first is the way boards of trustees are composed. The second is the evolution of the college and university president's role from chief mission or purpose officer to chief executive and fundraising officer. Both trends exacerbate the increasing corporate style of higher education institutions and threaten shared governance." Given that this is where we are, and that again, as faculty, we feel like sometimes we live on a different planet than the Board of Trustees and the upper administration, I want to suggest that we start a process of having conversations about what shared governance means to each body in the institution, so that by the time the next crisis hits, we don't just find ourselves in the same entrenched positions, but instead we're having conversations about this between the different bodies of the university in order to try to come to some common understanding of what shared governance should mean and how it should unfold.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Declan, and then Morgan Clemmer.
Thank you all. Morning, my name is Declan Zupa. I'm a fourth-year student in political science. I'm also a Pathway student, a member of the College of Arts and Science Student Advisory Board, and a Wayne Morris Scholar. So with these experiences and the education I've been provided with here at the University of Oregon, that I come to feeling ashamed and frightened by the direction that our university is currently being steered. In 2020, during the previous Trump administration, UO joined what's called the UO Climate Alliance, affirming our commitment to maintain the emissions reductions outlined under the Paris Accords during a period of devastating federal backsliding. 5 years later, under what we see as a more serious rendition of Trump's authoritarianism, we embarrassingly remain the single largest source of fossil fuel emissions in Eugene, as has already been noted. This is due to our heating system's reliance on methane, a system which we already have the plans in place, as Jack mentioned, and the overwhelming student and faculty support to electrify. Yet inaction and backsliding is all we, the students, have seen from you, the trustees, whose fiduciary responsibility is to best represent our interests and to ensure that our university lives up to its mission and its espoused values, such as, and I quote, stewarding our resources sustainably and responsibly. It's also your duty to act in the overall interest of the city of Eugene and the state of Oregon. Yet due to your inaction, Eugene is years behind its emissions reductions goals. With only 5 years to go, we have realized 11% of citywide emissions reductions. That's compared to our goal of 50% reductions by 2030. We have 5 years. In spite of this state of emergency, our campus's footprint is only set to grow. The maintenance of business as usual doesn't only fail our immediate community, it signals the meaninglessness of your promise to uphold the emissions reductions outlined under the Paris Accords and our institution's failure to fulfill its missions of service to state and society, and the problems of shared governance that have been pointed out. In a moment when higher education is under attack, we need to imagine what the best versions of our institutions could look like. Since 2010, when board member Tim Boyle and Phil Knight's PAC, Oregonians for Higher Education Excellence, lobbied to privatize our board system, we have seen this already elite institution become more inaccessible and more unaccountable. The reductions we're unable to achieve is just one example.
1 minute.
Tuition raises and cuts to faculty coincide with the inflation of administrative wages and the increased ability of private actors to unilaterally dictate the organization of our campus, all while our climate action plans collect dust. Students, faculty, community members, and workers are all at the table, as you've seen today, waiting to work with you to make our institution serve the public again. The Oregon Compact is a perfect example. Another that comes to mind is the students who have spent so much time, like myself and Jack, trying to advocate for us to achieve the emissions reduction goals that were presented by the Thermal Transition Task Force. As the climate crisis deepens and our institutions fall under more federal pressure, I don't think any of us can afford for you to continue shutting them out. I stand behind the Climate Justice League's demand and the Thermal Transition Task Force recommendation to implement Thermal Transition Option 2B as quickly as possible and to take additional efforts to decarbonize campus and reduce UO's disproportionate climate impact. I also urge you to reject the Trump Compact and preserve our democratic freedoms by joining students, workers, and faculty in creating this compact for Oregon higher education. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Good morning, Morgan. And then up next will be Leslie Secker on Zoom.
Good morning, board. My name is Morgan Clemmer, and I'm a second-year chemistry student and the vice chair of the Student Planning and Construction Committee here at UO. In my chemistry classes and research lab, I hear so much about the ways to help the environment. Yet the obvious option Jack and Declan have talked about has yet to be implemented. I understand there are financial obstacles, and I and the rest of the Climate Justice League and the SBCC want to help overcome those challenges. From student fees to federal bonds to UO's own endowment and private donors, there are many pathways to fund the electric boiler project. It would not be just for the environment, but for enrollment as well, as you talked about being able to control our enrollment. It would make UO a shining example of environmentally conscious innovation and draw students like myself who are interested in seeing the forefront of progress being implemented here. Additionally, I urge you to keep the Center for Sustainability accountable in releasing the data they collect on the upcoming methane turbine trial. If implemented correctly with a definite end date in mind, it could have a positive effect on short-term global emissions. But if it only goes to power new loads on the system, such as the potential data center being built in Eugene, it would only serve to increase both local and global emissions. Local health effects also need to be studied much more before turning it on for a longer period. As always, I'd be amiss if I didn't mention our endowment. Now over $2.9 billion is being used to fund fossil fuel infrastructure and the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is unacceptable, and every second it continued is more blood on your hands. Summers are getting hotter, and the air is getting worse, and every living thing on the planet, including you and I, are in imminent danger. We live in a developed nation, far away from the ocean, so we might not feel it as hard as others right now, but have no doubt, it will come for you too. You have the power to make a difference. Every little bit counts. Do your duty. Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. That little chime, Morgan, was actually not for you to have to leave, but that was, I think, somebody getting on Zoom, is my guess. Okay, so Leslie Secker.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dr. Leslie Seltzer. I'm a UO alumna and a current faculty member in WGSS studies, so Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. As you might have heard, my community of queer trans people and my academic field are currently under attack nationally. This month, following the firing of an instructor who showed a basic graphic on gender and sexual diversity in class, the entire board of the Texas A&M system voted to restrict all lessons on race and gender unless the campus president has given prior approval. Even more recently, a graduate instructor in Oklahoma was put on leave for giving a student a bad grade on a psychology essay in which the student only referenced her own religious beliefs regarding gender and refused to engage with empirical evidence or disciplinary norms like citations. So in short, it's a very scary time to be teaching in my area, and despite the fact that I was hired to teach controversial issues like gender and race and sexuality, I regularly question whether I actually have the institutional support from UO's top leaders to do that job. I taught WGS 101 this term, 200 students. Every day I walked into that classroom, I questioned whether my university leaders would have my back if a student tried to stage some kind of confrontation around the content area that I was hired to teach. The reason I question your commitment to academic freedom is because UO's top leaders have been consistently silent in the face of these national attacks, often in the name of so-called institutional neutrality. And this silence speaks volumes because UO has not always been silent or neutral. Back in spring 2024, UO sent out emails encouraging students to report on instructors who taught content related to the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and I myself was reported and forced to defend my choice to teach widely accepted feminist perspectives on occupation, on an internationally recognized illegal occupation that many prominent feminists like Angela Davis, Leslie Feinberg, many others have consistently been outspoken about. And this past effort to repress academic freedom does not give me faith that UO's top leaders will defend my field, will defend gender and race studies and other controversial areas if push comes to shove. So I want to be really clear, it is not institutional neutrality to abandon academic freedom just because it gets tough, just because it gets hard or controversial. Silence is not neutrality. Everyone, no matter their ideology, hears your silence as an agreement with the existing efforts to repress academic freedom. So I am here to ask you to end your silence. In the words of Audre Lorde, who I know Provost Long often likes to quote, your silence will not protect you. It certainly does not protect us. It does not protect our institution. Audre Lorde tells us that we can learn to speak when it is hard the same way we can learn to work when we are tired. You must learn to speak when it is hard. I understand this is costly. You must do it anyways. It is your responsibility to defend this institution, and that means defending areas like mine. So here's where you can start. You can speak publicly and frequently about the importance of engaging with ideas freely and rigorously in the classroom, even if those ideas are controversial, even if students disagree with them. You can reinforce those norms with our UO students and discourage surveillance of instructors. You can speak loudly and frequently against efforts to attack and undermine academic freedom, including by publicly denouncing the Trump Higher Ed Compact. You can speak loudly and frequently about an alternative vision for a better higher ed. This vision has been offered to you through the Oregon Compact, which I hope you will sign on to. In short, the water is just getting hotter every day. We are all frogs boiling in the same pot, and you can sit silently and watch while academics like me in targeted areas are boiled alive by our national level efforts to repress these areas. You might think that this heat will never reach you, but it will eventually. Your silence will not protect you. I want to repeat this again, particularly for President Scholz and Provost Long. Your silence will not protect you. It is not neutrality. You have taken a side in your silence. So I ask you to break that silence. And in closing, I also want to express my support for the demands to not renew Bigfoot contract and to refuse to allow the use of UO branding KUGM's radio station. So that's all I have to say. Please stop being silent. We need you to stand up for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. Okay, we actually going to take a 10-minute recess, and then we'll be back at 10:25, and we will then do the resolutions and vote on those at that time. So 10-minute recess. All right, we call this session back in order. And the first thing we're going to do to make sure we have as many trustees voting as possible is we're going to vote on the resolutions that we discussed at length in committee and then discussed again yesterday. And we're going to vote for them in one block. I'm going to read the motions and individually, and I'm going to ask if there are any questions. Then I'm going to ask for a motion to vote for them in block. We'll do the normal process from there. So we had 3 program approvals. This was the MS in data science, the MS in cybersecurity, and the BED in child behavioral health. In addition, we would include a resolution to fund or to support the child behavioral health building that'll be up in Portland, and the HEC capital project submission for Lawrence Hall. Those were the 5 that we discussed yesterday. Before I ask for a motion, does anybody have a question on any of those 5? Okay, then we need a motion to approve the 5 resolutions included in the board packet listed as item 3A through 3E on the December 10th agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. We're now going to move on to our standing reports, and we'll begin with Chris Long and the Provost report. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Steve. Thank you. Good morning, trustees. Still morning, yes. I'm grateful to be with you for the final board meeting of what has been a demanding year at the University of Oregon. Let me begin this morning with a conviction shaped by my years of observing campuses as they rise to the challenges they face or falter under them. Meaningful progress depends on trust. Policies matter, strategy matters, data matter. Yet none of it will move the university with any real power unless the people responsible for establishing and advancing our shared purpose, the leaders among our faculty and staff, and at every level across our schools and colleges and central administration, trust one another's intentions and judgment. From the moment I set foot on campus 2 summers ago, I have sought to make connections and hold space for the people of the University of Oregon and for the different truths that animate our community. We began with the Provost Council, the academic leadership team of deans and vice provosts. We turned our regular meetings from information sharing to collaborative working sessions. And in our retreats, we have sought at once to deepen our relationships and to hold ourselves accountable to our shared commitment to authentic, values-enacted collaborative leadership. This year, the Council is reforming and refining how the academic allocation is distributed to our schools and colleges, with the overarching goal of providing more transparency, autonomy, and accountability for our deans, and more clarity for our university community. We are not establishing a new budget model, but we are trying to change a culture that had become too prescriptive to one that is more coordinated and collaborative. To do this, we've taken concrete steps to increase the share of the academic allocation flowing directly to schools and colleges, and we have removed some unnecessary restrictions on how deans can use allocated funding to maximize flexibility and to allow them to make more strategic decisions. I have been grateful for the regular meetings with the Senate Budget Committee this term, led by Melinda Casement. One of the things the UO Senate leadership and I learned from the difficult budget work we did this summer was the importance of creating a regular cadence of open interactions so more members of our university community can learn about and provide input on changes like these, forging the trusting relationships with leaders across the university that are central to healthy shared governance. In the same spirit of transparency and collaboration, with Joe Buck's University Advancement Team, we created the Academic Campaign Council, which regularly brings together our deans, academic leaders, and development officers to align fundraising priorities and strengthen our capital campaign. Our collective focus is to find ways to invest in faculty across the university, from the humanities to the sciences, and all the fields that define our academic identity, and to build world-class facilities that support their work so we can elevate our academic mission and reputation. These conversations are already opening new possibilities. When we share plans openly and face challenges together, collaboration becomes more than a value. It becomes a catalyst for progress and the key to unlocking exponentially higher levels of fundraising across the academic enterprise. We are continuing to work to align action and impact. So thank you for approving this morning's 3 new academic programs that speak to that goal. The master's degrees in data science and in cybersecurity bring the most sophisticated understanding of technology, together with the deepest understanding of the human condition provided by the liberal arts. The BEd improves access for students to the Balmer Institute and advances our effort to create a new profession that will address our national mental health crisis. These programs can launch with minimal new costs, and they offer real revenue potential. They are responsive to the needs of society while promising positive impact in our state and beyond at a time when the value of higher education is increasingly questioned. Finally, I am thrilled to announce a new initiative that could transform how we attract and nurture exceptional undergraduate students, giving them an immersive experience in pushing the boundaries of human knowledge from day one. The Provost Undergraduate Research Assistantship Pilot Program will provide research funding for approximately 60 first-year students with interests in the arts, the humanities, the social sciences, and the STEM fields. Students will earn $5,000 as an award for this, while their faculty mentors will receive a $1,000 stipend per student. Beginning this spring, we'll offer this to applicants who demonstrate exceptional academic promise, the students every university wants. We're hopeful that this will position the University of Oregon to compete for the brightest minds and will offer them a powerful reason to stay. I want to thank Grant Schoonover, Kevin Hatfield, and Lance McCormick and their team for leading this effort. As we look ahead to 2026, let me reiterate that no priority matters more than the trust we are willing to build with one another. Trust is earned through honest dialogue. It is rooted in courage. The courage to engage our differences of opinion, perspective, and of lived experience, not as obstacles that paralyze us, but as resources that deepen our work, lending our decisions texture and depth, and giving the changes we make together the purchase they need to endure. Indeed, a university is supposed to be a place where ideas meet, conflict, and complicate each other. The pursuit of truth requires this. In my view, it is not enough to navigate and weather the challenges we face during this disruptive time for higher education. We must elevate the quality of the educational experience we provide, enhance the impact of the research we do, and make good on the promise of higher education to do good for society. And to do this, we must cultivate habits of leadership rooted in trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's always thoughtful, thought-provoking. I have a question, but I want to give time. Does anybody else want to ask anything of Chris? Okay. I'm going to ask about shared governance. You talked about it. You heard comments about it today. I personally don't see it as totally black and white on exactly what it, where it is, but I'd just like you to elaborate on that. You heard comments. Is there work we need to do? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. There's work we need to do. There's always work we need to do. And one of the most rewarding aspects of my time here at the university has been the work that we've done. I know Diana's coming up and Sandy over there and Ed, thank you, with our Senate leadership. And they will speak, I think, also to this question today as we work together through what it means to have shared governance. From my perspective, I have sought from the time, and then Carl, you and I talked early on in my first conversation with you about my goals for the University of Oregon was to cultivate leadership, a culture of leadership across the university. And shared governance is an important component of that. That requires the structures to ensure that meaningful input is provided on the most important decisions that we make. And I would say that we worked very hard over the summer to try to create those structures. And, there were benefits to what we did and there were limits. And so the work that we're now doing, and I know Ed is leading a working group on that, and I appreciate your work on that, Ed, to think about how we're doing this work together and to create the structures so that we can have meaningful conversations and meaningful input on the work that we're doing together. That also requires a sophisticated understanding of the complexities of what it means to run an institution as large and important as ours. And so one of the real benefits of the Senate Budget Committee's work has been to get a collective understanding of kind of how the budget works, where the different kinds of funds come from, and what's possible with regard to them. So that's been an important part of this, and it's gonna be an ongoing conversation, and it's one that I am absolutely committed to advancing.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you are. I hope Bonnie Mann is listening. I don't think she's here. I don't know Bonnie, other than heard her speak today. I thought I appreciated her level approach. And one of the things that, when she said about me, and I agree with her, but I'm also going to use it as an opportunity to reinforce the work that we see you doing, we see Carl doing. We're informed about all the consternation and the comments and the discussion that went on the summer. It seemed to, Marcia's not here, but to us, extremely collaborative. The challenge is crisis creates friction. We went through a tough thing, and I think we're feeling some of that. And so my reason for my question is really to bring it out here. You brought it up in your comments. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want it just to fall on deaf ears. And it may be the kind of thing where there's some disagreement, but there's commitment. Yeah. Right? Disagree and commit. But because I don't think it's totally that everybody's going to agree exactly what shared governance means, to the letter. So anyway.
Yeah, I would add, I also appreciated the opportunity to have a real conversation, a shared understanding of what we mean by shared governance. I think that's going to be important, and I'm grateful for the work that the Senate is doing around that. To the point that you made, Steve, though, about the summer and working through some of the issues, a week or so ago, I had an opportunity to sit with graduates of the Leadership Academy that we run. It was an open invitation from members of that group. I really am grateful for the leadership of Sierra Dawson and Jennifer Espinoza, who have really cultivated a culture of leadership across this university. And so the graduates of the Leadership Academy joined, and we sat in a circle. This is the way that they create the space for holding difficult conversations. And I was grateful to be able to join them. And the question that I brought to that conversation was, how are we going to process together the fallout from the summer? And it was a really important conversation for me to be part of. I was moved by the commitment that people had to one another and to working through things. I think we can't just pretend that the pain that this institution felt over the summer is not, it has to be addressed. And so that's how we're trying to address it. It's the kind of form that we create, though, has to be one where trust can take root and grow.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Gerard.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Provost, for your thoughtful comments. So I think in the next few years, we might have to sunset programs, and we might have to end some tenures, faculty that have tenure, that we might have to let them go. I just think that's the economic reality of the situation. I wish it wasn't, but that's kind of what I see coming. Is there a process that you see that can be transparent, where you can get as much kind of stakeholder buy-in, so that when that does happen, you don't get the visceral reaction that you got this summer?
Thanks, Gerard, for that question. I would say that that's what I was really searching for at the beginning of the summer when we created the task force, the budget task force. And I will say, we didn't have the infrastructure in place that maybe now that we have some time to think about it, we're trying to build. The things that we do here at the University of Oregon are important. And so the prospect of closing some things down, particularly things that mean a great deal to a lot of people and have made a big difference in people's lives, is a tall and challenging endeavor. But we do have responsibilities to ensure that we're sustainable for the long term, and that we're making good on our promise and on our mission. And so a concern that I have is that, as we see in a number of other states, those decisions are being taken out of the hands of universities. And so if we don't find the pathway to make these decisions together in a way that has meaningful input from a broad diversity of perspectives at the university, then, I'm concerned that some of those issues are going to be taken up by the state and other things that are going to be a different set of challenges.
Okay. Renee?
Thank you, Provost, for bringing this topic up. As many of you know, I have a lot of experience ending projects and with layoffs of large groups of people. They are not fun. It's a very difficult thing to have to do, whether it's 2 people, 20, 30, 3,000. When you're in a crisis, you focus on the output of what that immediacy of the moment. I think one thing that could be helpful is to work on the decision-making framework and the process so that everybody is super clear on what their role is in the decision. I think in a shared governance is a moniker for something that's hard to get your arms around, but a decision-making framework is not. I'm an inputter, I'm a decision maker, I'm an advisor, I think that's very, very helpful because it also allows people to be heard and to enroll and to get the diversity of opinion while you're in the process of making the decision. I take your very important and well-made point. Owning the decision inside the university is quite important to the future of where we want to go. I think the clarity of having a process that is transparent, enrolling, and everyone understands their role in that process will only aid us in being able to hang on to those critical decisions. And when you get into the crisis moment, it makes it a lot easier for everyone to understand what's going to happen.
I really appreciate that point. And I think that some of the things that we learned together over the summer was about clarifying some of those things. The conversations we had in the budget task force was around, okay, very clearly, I need meaningful input. The decisions ultimately flow up through me to Carl, and they need to be informed. And I've said over and over again that we need to benefit from the wisdom that is rooted in the fabric of the institution. And so we need to get as much of that wisdom into these decisions as we can, and that's what I think shared governance is all about.
Talik and then Dennis.
Yeah, Provost Long, thank you for your remarks. I think I'd be remiss, and Chair Hort, I appreciate you saying that during the summer and during the conversations about potential cuts or cuts that you felt informed. But in an honest student perspective, I think the majority of students and even people in the community at large really felt the disconnect. And I appreciate the work that you and the Senate have been doing. And I think that we are starting to, see better ways of communication from university leaders. Carol talked about it yesterday, right? Meeting students where they're at through different modes of communication. But I want to make clear that I think sometimes, I know it's hard to communicate with that, but students didn't feel like they knew what was going on. And so I appreciate all the work that you're doing. And I feel grateful that I've been able to have conversations with you since you started as provost. And I trust that, you and the president are making good decisions on behalf of the students in mind. But I also think that a lot of students don't have that relationship and don't know that. And so being able to communicate that is sort of foundational to a good university.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Steve. Joining on what Renee talked about, I think having plans and structures in place for those moments is important. I also think it would be helpful for a discussion on campus about shared governance to be removed from a specific moment or a specific crisis, and thinking about what does governance looks like on an ongoing basis. Because I think, we have communication and engagement across a community, which is important. I think was what has been an ongoing topic, and I think there's shared governance in terms of, what's the role of the trustees, what's the role of the administration, what's the role of ASEO, what's the role of the Senate, and importantly also, what is not the role of the trustees? What is not the role, et cetera. And each entity has a governing role in their space, which I think is different than, we're all sort of engaging on every issue that, So I think having these conversations without the context of what happened over the summer, and also within the context of what happened over the summer is very important, and not sort of move forward just within that context, because I think we need to separate communication and transparency and what is shared governance.
Lillian?
Yeah, Dennis, I think you kind of helped split my question into two, so I'm going to try to articulate this. But really, I'm just asking, for the sake of clarity, what does the next 3 months look like? And I think I'm asking for in terms of the shared governance conversation, and then what does it look like in terms of preparing for any future budget situation we may be in?
Yeah, thanks, Lillian. So the next few months are going to be the continuation of what we've been really trying to do this term, particularly around the question of the budget. Have the Senate Budget Committee is working through both understanding the budget, but also, the conversation that I've said we're having around the academic allocation. They're also involved in that conversation, and so that'll be that's a very concrete opportunity for us to practice this and to hear how things go. I will make the decision about how the academic allocation is distributed, and so my goal in that process is to include the deans in helping to shape that, and the vice provost, as well as the Senate Budget Committee and their insights. So that'll be a part of it. It's kind of it's a good opportunity for us to practice. I think it's always helpful to have a meaningful opportunity to do that. And then we're also building, Ed and his committee and others on the University Senate are building, they've had some good conversations with Diana and Sandy about some ideas that are emerging there about how we're going to build that infrastructure for ongoing conversations. Yep.
Okay. Please, there are two opportunities here, learn or blame. This is not about blaming. It was not easy going through what we went through. It was done as well as anybody could do. Would it be done better next time? Of course, because we learn, and we learn from it. A lot of hurt, but and appreciate everybody's comments because they all are shared. Talik, Lillian, Dennis are all shared in the idea of learning from what we went through. Got a great university, plenty of challenges, a lot of people that care, and a lot of great leadership. Myself excluded. But anyway, I just want to say that because we get into these moments, it gets kind of quiet in the room, and people can feel like they're having to defend themselves. That's certainly not the case. It is an opportunity to learn from what we go through when we go through hard times, and it's to build in the future. So thank you for all the questions. And everybody should always feel comfortable to ask a question, and then thank you for the answers.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on. Priscilla Marino, ASUO President. Come on up. We had breakfast this morning. She's with Daphne. And Daphne. Hi, Daphne.
Okay. I'll get used to it one day. Okay, good morning, Chair Huerta, President Schultz, members of the board. It's good to see you all again from a couple of hours ago for breakfast. For those I haven't had the chance to formally meet, my name is Priscilla Moreno, and I have the great honor, privilege, and responsibility of serving as the student body president this year. I also want to take a moment to congratulate our new trustees. I hope to meet you and get to know you further and hopefully work with you this year. The last time I joined you all, I discussed some of the priorities that we had for the term, including basic needs, extending academic services, and rebuilding trust in our shared governance systems rooted in meaningful consultation with students. And I'm really happy to report that we've engaged with and impacted thousands of students in these areas this term. Starting with basic needs, we launched our Week of Relief in direct response to the federal SNAP delay. During this week, student volunteers flyered over 900 houses across the community to collect non-perishable food. We partnered with Spencerview Housing to provide food for our graduate student community, collaborated with the Student Sustainability Center's produce drop, and worked with community favorites like Tracktown Pizza to get free meals placed directly in the hands of students. And across this single week, we engaged face-to-face with over 500 students in our office and on 13th Avenue. We distributed over 300 food items at the produce drop and provided more than 1,200 food items in total to students across campus. And we're deeply proud of the work that we were able to do because it came at a moment when many students who maybe typically don't access basic needs resources on campus really needed that support the most. And in response to other federal conditions impacting our students, we created a Know Your Rights toolkit in collaboration with the Portland Immigration Resource Coalition and the Young Democratic Socialists of America's Socialists of Color Committee. And this toolkit centralizes clear, accessible information for students about their rights and available resources related to ICE presence in our community and on campus. And within just a few days of its launch over Thanksgiving break, the toolkit received over 700 site visits and engagements, with hundreds more since then. And it now lives on our newly launched ASCO website and will continue to be updated as conditions evolve. The next thing is an initiative I've been especially excited to advance since I first ran for office in the spring, which is our 24-hour library pilot program. And this idea was born directly out of conversations with student parents, graduate students, students working multiple jobs, all who shared the same barrier of not being able to access academic spaces during traditional hours due to other responsibilities. And for many students, late night or early mornings is the only time that they can study. So I'm proud to share that we made our vision a reality this term. For all of week 10 and through the middle of finals week, the Price Science Commons has been open for 24 hours a day. And to better understand actual usage, we hosted nightly programming between 9 p.m. and 12 a.m., Monday through Friday of last week. And security has been conducting head counts every night. During peak hours, they consistently counted over 350 students in the building each night during peak hours. The most heavily used time blocks were 11 p.m. to midnight and 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. For context, the science library's hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and our latest open library, which is the night library, currently closes at 2 a.m. and does not reopen until 8 a.m. So the pilot program clearly demonstrates that a significant number of students are actively studying during hours when our libraries are normally closed. And to pair this with qualitative feedback, we also launched a detailed student survey on extended library access. And in just 1 week since its launched, we have already received more than 1,000 responses, and we are continuing to collect headcount through finals week to fully capture utilization trends. And we're excited to analyze this data and share what it tells us about how students feel about extended academic spaces on our campus. And then the third thing is another major issue that we engaged with this term was the rollout of the new football student ticketing system. And if you didn't know, the system shifted from a first come, first served queue that opened at a fixed time each Sunday last year, and it shifted to a lottery-based model. And many students with work, caregiving, or other responsibilities rightfully raised equity concerns about access under the prior model. And while we fully support responding to student feedback and improving systems over time, many students are frustrated that the transition to the lottery system occurred after hundreds of students had already purchased their $170 sports pass without meaningful advanced communication or student consultation. And many students expressed that the change felt sudden, unclear, and disconnected from their input. So in response to these concerns, our student engagement team launched a comprehensive student ticketing survey to elevate student voices and document this experience. And we gathered input directly from students at college game day, other athletic events, and across campus, and to date have received nearly 600 student responses. So we look forward to, in the winter term, meeting with athletics and sharing what we've learned and hopefully collaborating to explore a new system that students find equitable and transparent. And this concern connects directly to the broader issue that we've been talking about since the summer budget cuts, which is meaningful consultation. Those cuts did not only impact student workers, faculty, and GEs, they also reshape the broader student experience. One way that we're seeing this ripple effect now is through student organizations that previously received departmental support are now turning to ASCO for significant funding increases simply to continue operating. And my hope and what I believe students continue to ask for is ongoing reflection not only on the outcomes of these decisions, but also the processes that produced them. Meaningful shared governance means that all of us, students, staff, faculty, are engaged before decisions reach crisis mode, not after we're already feeling the impacts of them. And this is where I want to briefly connect and express ASUO's support for the Oregon Compact. We support this as a framework for the future of public higher education. And a couple things that I want to highlight of the compact is strong protections for academic freedom, especially during our politically contentious moments, strengthen shared governance where we're meaningfully involved in financial decision-making, not just informed after the fact, and improve treatment of our campus labor force and protecting student workers by not making them the first line of cuts. We view this as structural necessities if we want public universities to survive with integrity. And I also want to briefly lift up what we are hearing from students around the climate crisis. The Climate Justice League and other student leaders continue to call attention to the reality that the university is one of the largest sources of emissions in Eugene. And as the university charts its climate strategy, ASUO again asks for meaningful consultation with students, clear communication about the causes of delays in taking action, and full transparency around decisions on an issue that our campus and broader community have been advocating on for decades. So I want to close today not only by reiterating how proud I am of the work that ASUO has been able to accomplish this term, but I also want to share a little bit about what I hear from students on a daily basis regarding trust in our institution. And it has become increasingly clear to me that students do not want to be in perpetual opposition to our administration or this board. We, especially at ASUO, want to be in partnership with you, and I believe that in this coming year there are real opportunities for us to work together, like bringing students to the Capitol to advocate for higher education funding from the state, responding collectively to the climate crisis, or rebuilding trust through stronger shared governance practices. And I want to do this and more in collaboration with you, and I hope that during my time as president, we can maybe work on some of these things. And at the end of the day, we are asking that students be centered again and again in the mission of the university, not just talked about as revenue streams or numbers, but as the reason that this institution exists. And it's been a pleasure this term getting to write to some of you and meet with some of you. I truly believe that the next chapter of this university can be better than the last if we work together. So thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Priscilla, thank you. You really got a lot done this this term. So
Thank you.
Thank you. I have just a question and maybe some clarity.
Yeah.
You spoke a little bit about students coming to ask for funding that was taken away by administration or by, I'm just trying to ask for what would be an example and what are we talking volume-wise, just to get a impact idea.
Yeah, so this stems from the cuts that departments had to make. And with reduced funding, some of that money went to student organizations. For example, academic student organizations like Philosophy Club have historically received money from the philosophy department and partially by ASUO, but now that departments are really tight on their own budgets, they're having to cut the support that they can provide for academic student organizations. So we're seeing while we're budgeting the IFE and doing our best to keep it under 5%, a lot of it is this top down, it's trickling from the budget cuts that we saw over the summer. So these student organizations are seeking support and large increases from ASUO to be able to operate.
It's interesting. We feel the same way when we don't get money from the state of Oregon. So what I'm hearing you say is you feel it because you're getting pressure for requests for funding, and your only vehicle is the IFE. Is that a fair way to say it? So we've got to raise fees to pay the services. Yeah.
Right.
It's a hard predicament. Yeah.
Steve, I just want to ask
go ahead.
directly, and this could be something in a follow-up, the volume. I think that at least we'd really like to know what that number is that's coming to you now.
Yeah.
If you could share that with us, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, the program's finance committee, which allocates funding to over 200 student organizations, has currently allocated $1 million of the IFE, and they're trying to get under $2.5 million, but it's looking like they'll be having to cut between $7,000 and $10,000 from each organization from now until the vote on the IFE, which is in February, in order to meet that benchmark.
And could you share the vote on the IFE, what the increase is?
That would happen in February.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to nitpick, but 10,000 from each organization. Didn't we just hear that you have several hundred organizations?
Yeah, we have over 200 organizations ranging from the amount that they get allocated every year. For example, cultural organizations is what a lot of the funds goes towards. I think the largest cultural org that we have gets around $65,000 a year, is that correct? So some of these organizations that maybe their annual budget is $15,000 are looking at cuts upwards of $10,000, which would leave them with really having to rethink the future of their organization and how they will be able to operate.
Interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you for the question.
Talik?
So if I'm correct, I know some of the budgets have already preliminarily been accounted. This means you would have to then recall some of the budgets back. Is that correct?
Yeah, recalls are happening.
Okay. And is there a projected right now? I know the vote, of course, won't happen until February, but do you have projections on where you might land, given this current state of affairs?
Yeah.
Are you asking the percentage of the IFE
I am.
increase? I mean, in conversations we've had with all of the finance committees, it looks like, you know, they're shooting for a 4.5% increase, which is below the 5%, so we wouldn't need to go to the board. But PFC is looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars that would need to be cut. They're doing preliminary recalls before the middle of January. January 15th is the deadline for the first round of budget hearings that student organizations are going through, and they're already having secondary conversations with groups that have been preliminarily approved to try to reach their benchmark.
Which I know PFC and all of you are hard at work to do that. I just want to point out sort of how historic that is, because it was raised by a significant amount last year. And so, I mean, the cascading effect from last year and raising it again is significant. So I appreciate the work that you all are doing in this time, and you will up until February.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Daphne, Priscilla, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much.
Diana Mason. Morning, Diana.
Okay. Good morning. I guess almost still morning. Chair Hawarda, trustees, President Schultz, and colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Diana Mason, your UO Senate President this year, and I'm an associate professor in the School of Planning, Public Policy, and Management. Since my last presentation in September, we have welcomed our students back to campus, and I'm always buoyed by the energy our students bring to our classrooms and community. Yet tensions still remain. You heard about many of them today. Many were impacted by the layoffs announced in the early summer and fall, and many faculty and staff have continued to express their anger and dismay to the Senate leadership. One of the pledges I have made as president of the UO Senate this year is to strengthen our shared governance processes and procedures in order to enable more robust campus conversation and consultation. This would regard our university's priorities and its future. I know that the outcomes of our university's decision-making are made stronger when there is comprehensive consultation, including with those who hold different perspectives and those who may be impacted by the decisions being made. This belief was made stronger during my recent participation in the Senate Leadership Conference hosted by the Big Ten Academic Alliance a few weeks ago in Wisconsin. What struck me from those conversations, while all campuses are experiencing similar fiscal and political challenges, is the fact that the Senates and faculty leadership of our individual universities are all committed to serving the best interests of our institutions. We may sometimes disagree with each other on the shape of our future or the direction of particular priorities, but we are all wholeheartedly committed to strengthening the future of higher education in service to our students, communities, and society. By inviting senates into university decision-making, the decisions that are ultimately agreed to are better and often have the necessary buy-in to gain wide support across campus. I'd also like to mention a few things we are currently working on. First, the Senate Rules Committee has been working to revise our own bylaws to support our own internal decision-making processes, allowing for more flexibility and agility when urgent matters need to be addressed. Second, our Senate Committee on Oversight and Shared Governance, chaired by Vice President Davis, will be working in the coming weeks and months to help identify new processes to shore up opportunities for faculty, staff, and student feedback and consultation when sometimes difficult decisions need to be made. We are looking forward to working with the provosts and president's offices to enable and implement these procedures. Third, our Senate Budget Committee, which Provost Long discussed earlier, has been working with the financial officers of the university to better explain UO budgeting and engage in questions and conversations about the UO's budget, priorities, and projections. These meetings are open to all members of the university community in the spirit of more transparency and greater understanding. Fourth, the Senate and our communities continue to pay close attention to the actions of the U.S. federal government as it relates to higher education, academic freedom, and the safety of members of our campus community who are feeling particularly vulnerable and afraid. Earlier this term, the Senate passed a resolution titled Opposing the Compact for Academic Excellence in Higher Education. You've also heard about that today. That restates our commitment to academic freedom in responses to recent efforts to force destructive government intervention into our institutions. We also have been in communication with the General Counsel's office and welcome them to 2 of our Senate meetings this term to discuss the legal landscapes that are impacting our research mission and our immigrant, international, and Dreamer community members. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us at those meetings. Last, although we remain, I feel rightly attentive to these issues, the important work on supporting our academic mission continues. The Senate completed our work this term, improving 3 new degree programs, a Master's of Data Science, a Master of Cybersecurity, and a Bachelor of Education in Child Behavioral Health. So thank you for your support for those new programs. I want to thank the provosts and other leaders of the Provost's office and being responsive to faculty, staff, and student concerns in supporting these proposals this term. I want to echo the provost and badly paraphrase you, Provost Long, by saying that despite the fact that we are in uncertain times, we must remain focused on our mission to continue to look for new opportunities to better serve our students, increase our community impact, and shore up our academic mission. I see my role and the role of the Senate this year as one to support more UO engagement among our constituents in these efforts of shared governance. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Diana. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Chair. First, Diana, and then we're neighbors.
We are neighbors.
In terms of our offices are right next to each other. So first I want to say you're doing a great job as president. It's a very difficult position to be in, and you did it during the summer when you're off contract. So thank you for that. And I guess my question is around shared governance. Like, what can the board do to help the Senate kind of, accomplish what you want to accomplish? Because I would say, and this is more for the board, the Senate is really the only institution that really, when I talk about egalitarianism, is only the only institution on campus where you have faculty, you have staff, and you have students where they come together and kind of communicate and can really talk about kind of shared governance issues. So what role can the board play to support what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. Is it Professor Sandoval or Trustee Sandoval in this setting? I don't, both, trustee and professor. One of the things that I think makes the Senate unique is that we are made up of all of the constituencies in the UO campus, from students to OAs. Many of our members are also part of our labor unions and staff. teaching faculty as well as tenure line faculty. So I see really my job is to help amplify the voices and perspectives of those different constituencies in the work that we do, and then in what I share and what we share with you here in the board meetings. So any opportunities that we have to engage in these conversations more broadly, I think we would welcome. And also trying to identify ways to break down that disconnect, I think, a lot of members of the community feel with senior leadership and the Board of Trustees, and try to develop shared visions for U of O's future, right? I think we're all very committed to the work that we're doing here and this institution and the way it serves our students and the community.
I'm going to use a reminder. Well, Gerard's in a unique position because he is past president, and so you have a lot of knowledge. And you're a faculty member, so you have a lot of insight. And now you're a trustee, which really gives you voice and access and, well, that really gives you another level. One of the things that I talked about this in September, it's important we have our role as a board, that we don't try to run the university. It's a great way to ruin this university for us to try to do that. And what we really do, and what's so helpful in hearing the comments and then hearing input from students, from Gerard, is giving us perspective to be able to be a little bit better educated as we talk to the leadership at the university, Carl, Chris, hey, this seems like this is an issue, what's going on? That's where we really need to shine. And so it's a way of saying we want to hear everything, but we don't think we're going to be doing the university service by then getting involved in the weeds, unless it doesn't get settled. Now that's our job, then talking to the university. And for Gerard, one of the hardest things is playing that role. He's been in your shoes, knows what needs to be done, and your input is very helpful for educating us about when there are times where, hey, does this need to be addressed, but not by us, even though we are part of shared governance as well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've learned since I became president earlier this year was that when we have an opportunity to actually listen and hear and try to integrate the feedback and perspectives of others, the decisions are better, right? And we see that in our own internal Senate processes when we have a very sort of lengthy sometimes process of developing proposals and vetting them and getting feedback and hearing questions and hearing different perspectives really makes the final proposal, the final policy, the final resolution much stronger, and I think better represents the interests of the community. So as much as we can all do that together, I think it serves all of us really well.
I think that's well said. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
All right, and now the president's report. Carl?
Priscilla, Diana, thank you very much for your remarks. And I'm really glad, of course, to be with you all today as we close out the calendar year of 2025. So last week, I joined Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, Oregon State President Jyoti Murthy, our own U of O trustee Renee James, and 5 other colleagues and industry leaders to support the Frontiers of Advanced Semiconductor Technology, or FAST, a partnership with the potential to transform Oregon's semiconductor ecosystem and strengthen U.S. leadership globally. FAST is one of 15 finalists for up to $160 million in National Science Foundation investment in the state of Oregon, representing an opportunity to accelerate research, expand educational pathways, and fuel economic growth. I hope Renee agrees with me. The meeting went well. But one of the crucial questions that arose from the NSF review panel was, if you get this investment, what difference would this make 5 years from now? That's a great question, and it set me on a path to thinking about the same question for the University of Oregon. We've set an ambitious goals for ourselves, and I think it's a useful exercise to think about where we want to be in 5 or 10 years. So today, I want to look forward to the end of 2030 and reverse engineer what that could look like based on what we're putting into place today. So up front, I want to acknowledge when we envision our future, it's only a useful exercise if we do it with clear eyes about challenges, real and perceived, that we will face. I tend to be an optimist, but there are many things confronting the University of Oregon and higher education in general that can and will test us. So why now? There's great progress being made in many areas of the U of O. And at the end of 2025, I'm in a reflective mood about what we have accomplished and what we have been challenged by over the last year. We're just over a year since our launch of Oregon Rising, moving from vision to action, and there are indicators of success in current initiatives and news. So I'll start with some national attention we've received this fall that shows our brand remains strong. When we think about where we want to be in 5 years, I imagine us being in high demand. Students will want to come here even more than they already do because of our efforts at recruiting talent and the positive national attention the UO attracts. They'll know us because we are one of Forbes magazine 10 national vibe schools, applauding our forward-looking culture, creative and independent students, and strengths in business, design, sports marketing, among other areas. Students and researchers will know us because we are a place where you can innovate and become a leader. Time magazine this fall moves the UO up from 71 from 80 on its leaders ranking, which emphasizes career outcomes and innovation, aligning well with the university's focus on entrepreneurship, research impact, and the success of our students and alumni. And just to put that number, like 71, you say, man, if the football team is in the top 71, that's not so great. But remind you, there's over 2,500 four-year colleges and universities in the country. While specific programs are sometimes called out in these awards, we know they build on the strong foundational programs that underlie our success. Our outstanding faculty and staff drive our success. At the end of 2030, our excellence in athletics will continue to be one avenue people come to know about the UO. Coach Dan Lanning will have won a national championship, continuing the success that he has had since coming to Eugene. This fall highlights that trajectory. We are ranked number 5 and will host our first ever college football playoff game on December 20th against the Dukes of James Madison, jump-starting what we hope will be a deep playoff run. And just last month, we hosted ESPN College Game Day for the second time this season. The first time we hosted attracted the 7th largest audience ever in Game Day's history, and they've been going since 1996. The second time attracted the 5th largest audience in history, and that's attention on our university. I mention this future in athletics because it's part of what we strive for as the university as a whole. The aim is to be the best. Our achievements bring pride and national recognition to the university and reflect the hard work of our students, our staff, and our faculty. I've spent a lot of time this fall envisioning how we as a university can be a driver of economic growth in our city, our region, and our state. We want to be great, and in so doing, lift up the community around us. This fall, the UO was recognized for our leadership in economic engagement, earning the Innovation and Economic Prosperity designation from the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities. We are one of 94 universities in the country with this status. This recognition reflects the UO's role as a catalyst for innovation, a partner in workforce development, and a driver of community vitality across Oregon. It is my hope that in the next 5 years, we bring significant progress to our work launching the Southern Willamette Valley Innovation Corridor with partners with the Oregon Business Council, partners at Oregon State University, our elected officials and regional business leaders. The goal of this work is to develop a regional economic vision, one that integrates research, workforce, land use, and quality of life into a cohesive strategy for growth. Our goal is simple: to make this a place where innovation thrives and opportunity flourishes. By working together, universities, businesses, and government can make the Southern Willamette Valley a hub of innovation and economic strength, reflecting our shared values. We want to provide the ability for our graduates and our children to stay in the state. We seek better paying jobs, stronger benefits, more investment in the arts, culture, parks, and libraries, all the things that make communities vibrant and livable. We'll have more to invest in our schools, to tackle the challenge of the unhoused. We can do all of this while honoring what makes Oregon special: our natural beauty, our sense of stewardship, and our commitment to sustainability. And why does this matter? Oregon's future depends on strong partnerships between universities, businesses, and communities. As the state's flagship public research university, the UO is committed to preparing students for meaningful careers, advancing research that drives innovation, and working with partners to build a stronger, more resilient economy. Of course, we engage with Oregon in many other ways. Another great example, and I'll only mention one, is through the Sustainable City Year program, which through year-long partnerships has students guided by faculty embedded in communities to solve the problems of today and lay the groundwork for a sustainable, livable future. In doing this, students prepare for the workforce through applied learning. We're laying the groundwork for 2030 and beyond by measuring our economic footprint. To understand that broader impact, we engaged Parker Strategy Group, in February to measure the university's economic contribution statewide. The goal was to provide a complete analysis of the total economic, employment, and state and local tax impact for the university. In 2024, in fiscal year 2024, the UO generated $3.7 billion in economic impact from operations, research, athletics, student spending, and visitor spending. This is the largest impact of any educational institution in the state. We created 21,563 jobs and generated $238.2 million in state and local tax revenue. For every $1 invested in state appropriation, we returned $15.22 in operation impact. We truly are a driver of economic prosperity in the state of Oregon. The bottom line is we represent a vital part of the state's economy. We're embedded across all regions and sectors of the state, and these activities are amplified by our extensive alumni network, including nearly 130,000 who live in Oregon. This contribution will do nothing but grow. And then there is Oregon Rising, our North Star and roadmap. Looking at the next 5 years and beyond, we'll have made progress across our 4 goals. We're already seeing the fruits of these labors today. For example, in 5 years, we'll have made great progress on our 4-year graduation rate targets of more than 70%. The year I started, we're already making progress in this, even not looking forward to 5 years. The year I started, our 4-year graduation rate was 57%. We've increased it by almost 6 percentage points to nearly 63% in just 2 years. You heard yesterday about our great progress on credit loads. We will have built an ecosystem of alumni and companies engaging with us and using their networks to help place our students in fulfilling careers. Our career communities will prepare people for post-graduation life, and instructors will have embraced their roles in identifying transferable skills as part of their curriculum. We'll strive to flourish, building a culture where people thrive. Our success will not come from quick overnight fixes, but from purposeful work. Our Human Resources Division and other areas of my cabinet have embraced this work. We have an upcoming employee engagement survey, and colleagues are constantly thinking about ways to help us develop a culture where we aspire to be, and I'm looking at Provost Long, irresistible. We want to have the resources to compensate people fairly and a culture of engagement that supports people, personal and professional goals, and critically, the mission of the university. When we think about our future in research, we'll have had a demonstrable, large, positive impact on the state, region, and world. When I imagine the university's research enterprise in the next decade, we will have continued to grow and cultivate a culture of excellence where curiosity-driven research thrives and we're competitive in key funding opportunities. Our faculty will do research that matters to their disciplines, to expanding knowledge, to improving the world. And this will happen across the arts and humanities, the social sciences, the physical, biological, and mathematical sciences, and in our wonderful professional schools. That's my vision for the University of Oregon, a comprehensive, forward-pushing institution where our people are inspired, engaged, and meeting the best of what great universities are. Of course, there's additional considerations we must also navigate. In the coming year, we'll need to be ready to deal with potential adjustments or cuts to the state budget affecting appropriations to the state's public universities. You also heard from Derek Kindle yesterday about enrollment. It is a difficult landscape we're now in, where formerly solid out-of-state recruitment pipelines are being upended by increased competition. A lot of my positivity about the future is predicated on our ability to recruit students and solidify budgets. I haven't mentioned other volatility that come and almost certainly will come from the Trump administration, whether through cuts in research funding, changes that affect international student recruitment, or other issues. But no one has ever said worthwhile goals are easy to achieve or come without setbacks and course corrections. I have great confidence in the team we have built. We have wonderful vice presidents and deans and dedicated staff, faculty, and students. So how do we get there? We work together. It's quite simple, but the challenge is in committing to doing what's best for the institution every single day. It's the day-to-day, sometimes hard decisions we have to make. The commitment to the vision and then showing up and doing the work. You might not see progress from Monday to Tuesday or even December to January, but when you look up a year or 5 years from now, we will be way, way further down the road. And that's where I want to leave you today, with optimism for our future because of what we're doing today. I'm grateful for our progress, excited about what's to come. So thank you.
I'm going to start with the first question. What is a vibe school? And were we on the list? And who produced it?
My new favorite, Observers of Higher Education, the magazine that I now think is the greatest magazine in the world, Forbes magazine. Being slightly more serious. So they had a quite reputable education writer look, and a vibe school. Let's see if I can get the 4 criteria. The vibe schools are a academically solid, socially fun place to go to school. It's in a lifestyle or destination location. Provides a great education in professional schools, particularly business, but across the university. And it is academically respectable, but less cutthroat than the Ivies. And again, I'm delighted in the framing, and I've had some wonderful, wonderful validation getting to speak a lot to parents in the fall, particularly around move-in. And this was in parent and boards where parents are on. And it was shortly after the Forbes article came out. Needless to say, I'm tickled as heck to be identified as Vibe School. But you mentioned in large audiences, and it was just smiles. It was like, oh, President, tell us something we don't know. But they know it because they're here. But nationally, more people can understand what a really remarkable place that we have.
It was cool. Did they publish 10? Is that what it was?
Yeah, there's 10 of them.
We were number 1.
They didn't rank
Whatever.
10, but we're 10
Whatever.
out of the 22,500 four-year colleges and universities. Pretty rarefied air.
Any questions for Carl? All right. Thank you, Carl. Next, my remarks are going to be short. I just wanted to comment to all the trustees. First, I wanted to thank Gerard, Talik, and Renee for starting out, I'm going to say on fire, starting out on fire. Okay, these meetings are better because we're engaged and we ask questions. And the three of you are new, and as being new, it's not easy to ask questions. You each ask questions, so thank you for that. To our whole group of trustees, when coming here, we encourage questions. What's fun to listen to, everybody comes prepared, you listen, and then you ask questions, and they're not softball questions. So we talked about new degrees, we talked about shared governance, the budget, marketing, enrollment, and people continue to do that. That's the point of this group. So I want to thank everybody for that. And we're always going to try to stay on time. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts? Are we missing anything, Cody?
Kind of an administrative thing I'd like to get in the record. Yes. In Jamie's presentation yesterday, there was intended to be a couple of slides on the TFAB on cost drivers, and I just want to make sure those get in there, and because there was a better breakout on the categories driving expenses, and just 31 million out of 33.8 million is salary, medical, and other employee benefits costs. So it's 92%. So as we're having these discussions, I just think having that basis in the back of our minds is those expenses are baked in, maybe the right way to call it. Yeah. And so we're still facing a challenging process.
Thank you, Andy. And everybody has that as a supplement you sent out, right? Was it, Jamie, did you send it or Cody? Okay, so everybody has those, but yes, please put them in the minutes. All right. Thank you.
One final, can I jump in?
David from the highway somewhere.
Absolutely. So as I had a chance to think about shared governance from our conversation, one thing that struck me is we as the Board of Trustees are the governing board of the university. And I wanted to take a moment to appreciate how we're a good example of shared governance. In my role, I'm here because the president of ASUO nominated me to the governor. I know that's the same with Sai and Talik. The Senate has a chance to nominate a faculty member themselves, so that's why Gerard is on this board. And so, Gerard, I know you mentioned there's only one place on campus that's egalitarian and represents all constituencies, but there's another, which is us, the Board of Trustees, and that's something that's truly remarkable and fairly unique, both to the state of Oregon and University of Oregon. So that's something that I think we ought to appreciate.
Thank you, David. Safe travels. Are you on the tarmac yet?
Not yet, but thank you.
All right. We'll see you soon. We're adjourned.